Hello, who should be live? This is Tara Smith's kitchen, and I'm just kind of cooking breakfast, lunch, and I happen to be home, so I thought I'd use the whole camera thing. And it's just bacon and eggs and some toast or what have you. Hold on. Cool. Remove this destination. Cool. Okay. This one's just going out to YouTube and Twitch. If anyone wants to hop in, I put a link in the chat. You go to StreamYard and you can hop in. I'm just at home alone with the pets and all that good stuff. At some point, I'm going to start making something. I don't know. But here's the bacon. HEB. I didn't buy the big pack for once. I just got the small one. That way I can ensure I have some kind of money through the week. And I just remembered there's some important phone calls I have to make today. Funny how that works. The mind never does kind of how it should. If that makes sense. So I'm just going to fry up some bacon. I'm going to fry some eggs in the bacon grease. Because that's what you do with bacon grease. Rumble, for some reason, is having problems. I don't know what their deal is. But Rumble needs to fix their problem. And that'll be the next question. I want to get one of those things that are made for bacon grease that you pour your stuff into and it filters it out and has a lid. No one in my family did anything like that. They just had the coffee cup, they put like a strainer on top of it, and pour it through there, and you had your bacon grease. And that was pretty much it. I can probably turn this off since Rumble is wanting to be a pain. There we go. And I have my coffee in my percolator, my wonderful coffee. Like I have one person watching often instead of someone. My guess is everyone is at work today. My days are all confused. That happens as a truck driver. I don't have a normal work schedule. I am usually off on a Sunday. Usually. Doesn't mean that I'm going to be. I want to go for a ride, but it's raining. Ride my bike. I might ride it later. I don't know. You can't just wait on the rain forever, or you're never gonna ride. I don't know. There's a good 5, 6 months this year. You have got plenty of riding. That was called a drought, and I did plenty of riding. I need a new stove at some point. I'm probably gonna have to win like the lottery or something to get a stove. Stove's probably older than most of my viewers. Well, it's not that old. I think it's probably from the early 90s. I should look it up. I looked it up at one point. I know it's over 20 years old for sure, because this is the stove that was in the house when we bought it in 2001. Hello, Kitty. How you doing? Kitty smells bacon. She knows she's gonna get a treat. And the percolator makes the most wonderful coffee. I might just not even buy another coffee pot. The only reason we had a coffee pot is Amy doesn't like using the percolator and stuff. And until recently, she wasn't really a coffee drinker. She never was. Now she got on that kick with like the cold coffee and stuff like that, and she'll drink it. But I don't think she grew up drinking coffee, and I did. From a very young age in my house, you were drinking coffee. That's just the way it was. And there was also a 2-foot thick cloud of smoke through the whole house because, back then, 70s and 80s, our parents were chain smokers. And some of them were smoking other stuff, and had relatives like that. You get a buzz walking through their house. But everyone was in a good mood, usually, so it worked. Hello. How are you? I see you. I'm not ignoring you, but I kind of am. She wants attention. So this is just breakfast. Like I said, Rumble didn't want to work. So if you're watching this on Rumble later, because it will repost to Rumble, I'm sorry. Rumble just wasn't working. It's like they have a bug this morning or something. I don't know. I really do not know. All I know at the moment is I am frying bacon. That piece is done. Depends on how you like your bacon. I think bacon's kind of like eggs, too. Some people are going to want their bacon extra, like, crispy and stuff, And then some people are going to want their bacon softer. I'm pretty sure that piece is done. Yes, it is. I like mine a little crispy. Thick cut bacon and a little crispy. Afternoon? You must be on the East Coast. Or is it afternoon yet? I don't know. Hello, Krabby. How are you doing? That first batch of bacon is always a little bit weird. It's kind of like that first pancake going to the dog. Dog's like, you're fixing pancakes. He knows he's going to get the first one. That just is. One day I might even have a stove that's level. And the grease doesn't all go to that side of the pan. One day. Who knows? That's done. Oh, yep, you're out east. Where are you out east? I have family out east. My dad's side of the family is all East Coast. They're like Maryland, Pennsylvania, New York, all that area. My mom's side of the family is like Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma. Like East Texas, well, draw a line from like somewhere between Houston and San Antonio. Like maybe out there, pretty close, about Luling-ish. And just go straight up to Dallas, then go straight up to Tulsa, and then just go over to the other border of Arkansas and Louisiana. And that's where most of my mom's family is. Marylandistan. Oh, good Lord. I would ask you your last name, see if we're related. My father's side of the family, like any family that's been here a long time, you can kind of look at different waves of immigration. But if you go on his father's side of the family, they had, which would be the Phillips, they got a grant from the king, contract, whatever, and they went back and forth with freightliners in the year, I think, 1630 from England to the Americas. And that's how they came over here, and they kind of went to Maryland and branched out from there. Then there are other immigrants, like my great-grandfather, his name was Peter. He came from what is now the Czech Republic. You know, so their children marry. And I get my father. Actually, on my mother's side of the family, there's an English line, which my mother gets her maiden name from. And they are all direct descendants of a Sir John Whatley, which I think is actually French if you go back far enough. Wasn't French at the time. It was that settlement of England. You know how the English pushed all the natives out, and they settled the good farmland and stuff, which became England, and everybody else was in, you know, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. And who knew Wales would have coal and all that kind of stuff back then? It wasn't a thing. But he got I think it's called a grant or something, from the king in the year 1600. And you look at English history in 1600, and he's from Frome, Somerset, England. And yes, that's pretty close to Shakespeare at about the same time, to settle Virginia. And of course, Virginia at the time, that was a pretty large portion of what is Virginia. You know. And they ended up going down through the Carolinas, into Georgia, into Alabama, and to Louisiana. Actually, the story is that my great grandfather was running from a moose in Alabama, and who knows if it's true, the way family stories go. We've all got families, you know how that works. You go into your genealogy and start researching and finding out what is true and what is not. It is a very interesting research. And Gabriel, hey, how are you doing? But he went up into Indian territory in the late 1800s, which was Oklahoma. And he took a native wife, which my great grandmother is on the dog roll, final count. And there's some question as to whether she's actually Cherokee or Delaware Cherokee. And it's this weird thing when you go back through history and you find out how little our ancestors cared about each other of different races and what have you. Because they figured you lived in this area, well, you're Cherokee and we're rounding you up. Well, they weren't Cherokee, they were Delaware. There's some question of that. I don't know if it's true or if it's not true or what have you. I just know she's in there. You open up a little packet and the dogs roll and the children and oh, there she is. That's all I know. And then they moved down to Dallas during the Depression where they had most of their kids. I think my grandfather had 9 brothers and sisters. And my grandfather was born in Galveston. And then he, as a child, was moved to Houston, and he worked construction his whole life. My grandfather, we're talking black wavy hair, dark complected, but he had blue eyes. Same blue eyes that I had, blue-green, where they change color with your clothing. And he finished concrete most of his life. And I mean, he was up there, general superintendent. He had his own company for a while, which goes into how he met my father. And my father talks about that too. I've got his writings from when he was in AA, where he talks about meeting my mother and her father and getting a job with him. But immigration would try to pick my grandfather up from the job sites because, especially being dark complected as it was, dark hair and all that. And he's finishing concrete in Houston, Texas. I think my uncles had a bit of a problem with it too. I never really did. I never looked at it except when I was first born. I looked like I was one skin baby. And then like everyone else of my generation, my hair just went crayon blonde and my eyes went from that dark gray blue where it's almost black to just blue, And my son, his hair was red, and then it changed to the same blonde. And now we got the same hair color. There's a red tint in there too. And all the men on that side of the family have red beards. Tactical Fun, how you doing? But he would have to like lift his sunglasses up, or then he'd look at him and see his blue eyes, and they're like, no, I don't know. I know blue-eyed Mexicans. I don't know how that worked. That was just his story. My mom has that complexion like Daisy Duke. Yeah, because she's like half Hispanic. And she has that kind of tan, natural, almost like olive, what have you. I didn't get that. I got the paler skin, but I don't sunburn. I've sunburned, I can count on one hand in my entire life. I just turn lobster red and I'm a shade darker. And I get darker and darker. That's all that I do. Hopefully I didn't burn it. There we go. That's not quite ready to turn yet. That'll work. Now, Sir John Watley from Somerset, England. There's actually, I've got relatives from Georgia that don't know me. We're like distantly related. One is a violinist, I think. Well, I don't know if he's from Georgia, but then there's some people that make guitars and stuff over in Georgia. And we're all related to the same guy. And what's kind of weird is my mom's side of the family. My grandfather he was English, he was French, and that's where that Cajun line kind of comes from. So he's got the English, he's got the French, and he's got the what's the other? I think it's Black Dutch, which technically I think is Viking, you know? And then my grandmother on that side was Scotch-Irish. But all of their children ended up marrying like into Slavic Catholic families. Oh, you get the green tinge. You get the Shrek thing. Okay. They just burn. Cool. But no, they married people whose families immigrated anywhere from like about 1910 through World War II from Eastern Europe. Most of them, I guess, being Texas anyways, were Czech. I think all of them were Czech. So then, like, all my cousins had that Czech thing and all that. Even not being around my father's side of the family, you had that in there, like their grandmothers living in the same house with them and making wonderful soups and goulash and stuff like that. How do I deal with the spatter? Like the baking grease, I wipe it up. That's all you can really do, is you can wipe it up. Try to keep the computer far enough away it's not actually getting on it. If it does, I wipe it. Slovak German with some Irish. Strangely enough, I don't have German. I've got like everything else. You know, I've got Czech, I've got Ukrainian, I've got Russian, Belarus, I've got, well, it's technically, I think, Norwegian, but from like Iceland. And like Leif Erikson and all them. And I've got Irish, I've got Scotch, I've got English, I've got French. And technically the English is still French, you know, because of that whole thing where they invaded. I need to look at that name. I know like the name means something, like Watley means like wheat, something like that. They have a big quarry in England. They built the longest, straightest road in England, and there's like Castle Bromshire, I think it is, over there. None of those people would have any clue whatsoever as to who I am. It's like we're related to the same person from a little over 400 years ago that was born over here. We're like, what, first cousins to the power of like 15 or something, you know? These two are about ready to come out. Baking grease, wonderful baking grease, a wonderful cooking tool. And that is true. You move to the South, they're going to give you a cup and tell you to save your grease. You're going to use it later. How did I wind up in contact related to the firearms community? Well, I'm a 2A advocate. I used to have a lot more firearms content, Um, but YouTube started getting crazy, so I started focusing more on my cooking. You can still see some of it if you're on my Discord. I've got some links posted in there somewhere. I have a lot of guns and stuff on my Discord. But my family has always been very pro QA. And I mean, I'm 5 years old learning how to shoot out of soap box, which they were boxes back then. Kind of like the size like you get cereal boxes and stuff today. That's what the soap came in. And I think my family's fought in every war this country has fought nearly, and some of which on both sides. So, yes. And actually, Amy is the one that she's got a pan specifically for that to bake the bacon. I just grew up with cast iron skillet and do it that way. Because I am resistant to change. I'm not someone who does well with change, especially the older I get. I do not feel with change well. I think family histories and genealogy and all that are very interesting. Anyways, back to the other topic. I was actually, how I got into the gun community hey Kitty, how you doing? I was actually, because I'm in like opposing communities in a lot of ways. And I was looking for GLBT friendly firearms content on YouTube. And this is years ago, just kind of generic search sort of thing. And strangely enough, and this wasn't long after I believe Matt did his big rally here in Texas. I was kind of looking for stuff in Texas anyway. And it led me to Matt's channel, Never Enough Ammo. And through that, I found the Yankee Marshall and everybody else, because you know how YouTube and the algorithm and all that stuff works. Are you wanting bacon? Yes, my cats get bacon. Don't try to pound it back to flat. Yeah. I just noticed something with my cabinets. I don't know if it's just a weird like epiphany moment where it's like, whoa, I just noticed that. Or if there's something I need to look at with my house. I know it does need to be leveled. I'm wondering if that's affecting my cabinets. I don't know. I'll have to look into it. Either that or the whole house will fall down on top of my head and I'll become a news story. One or the other. I don't know. I really don't know which at the moment. Everyone likes bacon. Even those people that say they don't like bacon for religious reasons or what have you, they like bacon. All of them like bacon. And what's funny is like you become friends with them, like these guys at the gas station and stuff like that. And when they come over here, they're like, that's one of the first things they try, his bacon. There is no one in the world who thinks the smell of bacon is bad. None. And if they do, they're insane. That could be a test to see if you're insane. Do you like the smell of bacon? If you say no, Well, let's lock this person up because they are clearly insane. I'm doing this sitting down. This is what the restaurants get wrong about cooking eggs. When it comes to having them sunny side up and you want them runny yolks that you can sop up, is they don't get the grease splashed on top of them. I don't know why she got white eggs. We usually get brown eggs. Oh my God, a double yolk. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And we have a double yolk. We had one hen that was laying triple yolks growing up and trying not to kill it. So we're looking, we're thinking it's this big, healthy hen kind of thing. Must be to be laying triple yolks. Turned out it was the scrawniest hen that we had. She was putting everything she had into making those eggs. Sorry if the scraping is bothering you. Maybe that's a good omen for this chat. We got a double yolk. Y'all are my good luck charms. That's another thing. If you know anyone who's actually Irish, the whole 4-leaf clover thing is not a thing. In America, it is. I mean, they like a shamrock. It's like an American Irish thing. They're like, I'm Irish. What part of Ireland are you from? Like, I'm a Texan. I'm from Texas. I have a lot of family lineage that I know where it comes from. I was not born in Ireland. I believe technically my ancestors were over in that part of the world. Actually, the Smith name is Irish. To explain that, it is anglicized. And I cannot even begin to pronounce what it was originally in Gaelic. Gaelic, however you pronounce that. But the whole oppression of Irish people and all that, the history behind all of it, it was anglicized to Smith. I think you could probably look it up. Irish surname, anglicized Smith. It would probably tell you it's like Meg-on, Gavin, whatever. It means the same thing. Basically, someone in my family was a blacksmith. So technically, this is like having 4 eggs. I've got 4 eggs and 4 eyes. The reason I started actually caring, though, to get back to M. Gabriel's comment, because that's another thing, I started caring was being a truck driver. My truck was broken into for the second time with me in it. And my dog stopped them. But I'm thinking about it. My dog can't stop bullets. And they'd caught the people. They were meth heads from the motel next door. They had robbed 4 other trucks. And they robbed somebody else at gunpoint. Now I realized they had a gun. And then I started kind of getting back into firearms. I had gotten rid of all but one, which I kept tucked safely away. Because of our oldest, which is my stepson, I didn't trust him around guns. And by that point, he was old enough, and I just started getting back into firearms. And I bought a 1911 and got my permit and started carrying it. I was familiar with like 1911s and revolvers and stuff like that. The first actual handgun I ever fired was my stepfather's 44. It was a cap and ball, like Clint Eastwood, High Plains Drifter. It was that whole kind of setup, which he's a Clint Eastwood fan anyways. And just cap and ball, 44. So I wasn't worried about caliber or anything like that being too big or any of that kind of stuff. Now I need toast. I have to watch the bread around here because the cats will get into the bread. So will the dog. I don't know which one's more annoying. I had a bread box, but it got broken. When the dog gets into the bread, there's just like a plastic thing left, Why is this turned the wrong way? I have to watch the setting on the toaster. I didn't have so much grease in there, I'd just make it in the pan. But I like my toast darker. She likes her toast lighter. So some things like that, you have to watch the settings when you live with someone who likes things a little different than you do. Always be careful with the pepper. Where's the grinder? Sorry, I have ADD. Here it is. If you use something like this with a pour and a shake, make sure you got it on the shake thing. And that is pepper. Okay, here's the salt. Anyone try to get in? I don't see anyone waiting. I did put a link at the top of the chat if anyone wanted to get in. Getting down on the coffee. Hold on. Getting down to the bottom. And I screwed up. Nothing wrong with the coffee pot. And I overboiled it a little bit. But there's a solution to that. And that is a solution. Butter my toast. In a lot of ways, me and Amy are kind of opposites. I've got 5 sisters and a brother. I'm in the middle. I was basically an only child for like the first 6-7 years of my life. Technically longer than that, because my older brother and sister are step brother and sister. And then I have my younger sisters from my father and my stepfather and my mother. I have 2 other sisters from my father. But my older siblings are like 10 years older than me. So it's like I was an only child for a while. And even with all those siblings. And then in a way I was kind of the oldest because I'm like a decade older than my younger siblings. And Amy is a only child. She has no siblings. She does have 2 cousins. Why does she put things there? Some things she does is just to annoy me. So our childhoods were different. I grew up poor. She grew up basically middle class, only child. I got shit. She got everything. She had a dad that bought her whatever she wanted. She didn't buy her first car until she was with me after her father had passed away. And I'm like, yeah, you're going to pay the car. I'll pay the insurance, but you're going to pay the car off. And then she paid off her first car. So, we have bacon, we have eggs, we have toast. I have a cat back here begging for bacon. 2 cats begging for bacon. Yeah. I don't know where the dog is. But the dog would usually like bacon. Yeah, opposites attract. Even our taste in music, we have a lot of these same tastes. She is a little older than me. And she just turned 50. I just turned 46. And I'm more thrash, like thrash metal, that sort of thing. I think I have a wider taste in music. So I grew up listening to, Country Joe and the Fish, CCR, Hendrix, Joplin, and of course all your 70s and 80s country. And I'd get these bits of like metal and stuff like that from friends at school. And of course, she was more into the magazines and all that in the 80s. And she was, yeah, nothing wrong with older women. But, she was into the hair bands and all that, which I like some of the hair bands. I was that generation that watched everybody take off their Motley Crue jackets and put on a Nirvana t-shirt, Phone ringing. Glad I got the ringer off. That's my chiropractor wanting me to come in. Means their business is slow today. But she's more into like the hair metal and all that, which I am into, but I was more into like Metallica, and she was more into Poison, and I'd be a little more into Motley Crue than Poison kind of thing, And I like more of the grunge stuff because that's just my generation, And but we intersect. We do, like, I like enough of the stuff that she likes, and she likes enough of the stuff that I like, that it sort of intersects. And of course, I like, red dirt country, outlaw country, and anything from Pat Green to Cody Jinks. We used to make fun of the dime store cowboys growing up. The ones that would be all dressed up, and they'd have their starched Wranglers and their, buttoned up shirt and their collars pressed and their hat and boots. And never seen cow shit. And we're out there and just like cheap shoes or boots. I've still got a pair of, I think they're double H or something like that somewhere in the closet. Unless my son has them, because actually for a while he wore them. Could not wear them out. They would put blisters all over your feet. But it was usually that and the cheapest jeans they would have. They wouldn't be Wranglers, they'd be Rustlers. And they would be the, what do they call that? The off length. They'd have a hole already stitched up in them, being sold as new, that kind of stuff, and you come across a concert tee or something. Amy's got one that has Cinderella Loves the South and a big, rebel flag kind of thing on it, because that's how it was back then, And so we're out there in like a Metallica t-shirt or a Guns N' Roses t-shirt or Nirvana or something like that, with like just cheap ass jeans, off-brand sneakers, and we're hauling hay, and we're, red bandanas. Everybody had that, and everybody was drawing the Guns N' Roses symbol and all that kind of stuff. And we were the actual country kids. We were the cowboys and cowgirls and all that. We were the ones feeding the chickens and slapping the hogs and standing up on top of the chute and spreading powder on the back of some cow's back. We were the ones that were actually doing that. The other ones were too scared to get dirty. And they usually lived in town. So we made fun of them. They're the ones that would go to the country and western store and buy all the fancy stuff. Yeah, the red bandanas, poofed out hair, some guy in the back row of class trying to pierce his ear with a staple, shitty little dot tattoos, all that good stuff. That was a big deal too back then for some guy to have an earring. Couldn't play on the football team if you had an earring or long hair, unless you were native. Strangely enough, all the natives had short hair. But they couldn't make you cut your hair. Not if you were like everyone else with a roll card, which basically meant you're some white person holding up a roll card saying, I'm an Indian, because my great whatever the hell was part Indian. Meanwhile, you're going to school with people with names like Muskrat and Bear and Bear and all of that. My first love was music anyways. Music, playing guitar. And that comes from my mom's side of the family, her father. They all play musical instruments. All of them. And so you're 5 years old, getting yelled at for detuning your grandfather's guitar. You start learning how to play. My grandmother played piano. Catch you later, Gabriel. Thanks for the chat. Mute it for a second. I didn't think y'all wanted to hear me cough. Probably some, Mr. Malone. Probably some. Although I gotta be honest, that one will get you more money than the rest of them. And that's the problem with sugar daddies and sugar mamas. They're gonna want sugar eventually. But in the words of the great Anna Nicole Smith, where there is a will, there's a way. She's also got a very interesting life if you ever want to look it up. And not just believe all the bullshit the media tells you. Hold on. Let's see if I can put a link out there. Here's this. Cool. That is my Discord. There's a link to my Discord for anybody who's not already on it. It's a lot of guns and some cooking and some musical instruments and some motorcycle stuff. There are rules, so I would read the rules. There are some things that will get you kicked immediately. Hers, who was very devoted to her child. Yes. I never understood why there was a question as to who the father was. Take one look at that old man. You take one look at that young boyfriend. Everyone knew who the father was. Everyone. think they ended up with some kind of joint custody, which in a way kind of makes sense because they were both involved in the child's life. In a way, it would be kind of unfair to just like take the child away from one person and never see them again or what have you. You know, it's like one was the biological father and the other one was essentially like a stepfather kind of thing that had a lot to do with the child. So that probably worked out for the best. But everyone knew who the father was. It didn't need to be drawn out in the media as if it was some sort of a question. Anyways, that is the link to my Discord. Let's see if I can do some other links over here. I don't have much on Patreon. I have a handful of loyal patrons that have been there for a long time. And that's pretty much all I have. Because I understand times are hard, times are all that good stuff. And copy link, copy this, copy that. My Patreon has both my bike and my cooking stuff on it. But a lot of people have, like, on a lot of people's Patreons have kind of unsubscribed and stuff like that. And then there's the problems that like Clover Tax having with Patreon. That's on a different level. Cool. I think you can still do like $1, but then like the minimum roll thing, which has my Patreon is linked to my Discord, so it has rolls and stuff that are linked to my Discord. Hold on a second. Cool. I thought about doing like the subscribe star and stuff like that because fortunately, at least for my cooking channel, I'm going to be cooking food anyways. But we've all seen our grocery bills go up and how much food costs, especially when you want to go start cooking other things, doing other things. And I have been fortunate enough to raise money through that and PayPal to get things like I got my mixer over there. When I get some more time, I'm going to do some more breads and stuff like that, like maybe some hachapuri. I'll do more kolaches and I'll do some cakes and stuff. I was going to do a German chocolate cake. I ended up not doing it because of time and the process of where I don't want to do it from a box, you know? Which usually when your mom made you a cake growing up, stuff like that, it was from a box. Some of us it wasn't. But I think that was that whole thing from the 50s through the 60s where making these things for housewives to make their lives easier, there became this thing even through the 70s and 80s and 90s into today where, you know, you got your Betty Crocker in a box, that sort of thing, instead of actually making it, you know, melting the chocolate and that sort of thing. I've made some sweets on here before where I've done that and I've melted the chocolate and everything for it. Can't remember what I made. I don't know who Malone was talking about there. But for the most part, I like doing things from like complete scratch. I think that's a skill that we all need to know how to do. Not just go buy the box and it says, oh, it's this kind of cake, and let's go make the cake. I also need a couple more cake pans. I don't want to use the ones that I have. not for like making a video. But you make the cake, put it in the refrigerator, you let it cool off and everything. Yeah, you still had to add eggs and oil. But and then you make the frosting and all that stuff from scratch, which it's all not that hard. It's kind of fast becoming a lost art. This bacon grease cooled off. Bacon grease, a crucial tool in a southern kitchen. Dog, if you don't get up to get that, I'm going to take you to the vet because there's something wrong with you. Oh, he's going to get up. I chunked him a piece of bacon, and he's looking at me like, what? He's a mastiff. He didn't want to move. He was melting into the floor. But my Patreon has bike content and it has food content. It's got both. It serves both channels. And I might do like a subscribe star or a Cash App or something. At a point, it gets to be too many different things. I think that's how my generation treats social media. Because like we've all got a MySpace account out there somewhere. And then it changed like Facebook and all the kids are on these new sites. Like, why do you still use Facebook? Why do you still use that? It's like, we don't like change. We don't like changing everything over to something new all the time. And you kind of don't want to be on a whole ton of things that mind suck of social media. Which I realize the irony of we're on social media right now. But it can be that mindset. I wonder in 20, 30 years what they're gonna show for our health, the effects of it. Where good Lord, dog. Cheers. On our sleep schedules, because we know what factory work, shift work, stuff like that does, your circadian rhythm. And so now we've got all of these people laying in bed with a phone, watching whatever social media, looking through that whole, there's like that decompression when you come home from work. And it can just like suck hours out of your life. And you're like, I've got to get up for work in 2 hours. So what's that doing to our health? What's that doing to our lifespans? Hello, that bearded guy. How are you doing? Do better on though. Ahoy, my friend. I take it you're more on a westerly direction, still morning. It's barely midday. Here. You should look at guns, no interaction. But just the effect on our sleep schedule and our health and our lifespan and the stress that has later in your life on things like your heart and your lungs and mainly your heart and that sort of systems and just the general stress of life and susceptibility to illnesses, that sort of thing. So it's going to be interesting in about 20 years when all this stuff really starts coming out. And on top of that, we will have, in 20 years, we're going to have 40 and 50-year-olds who have never known anything but a life with internet. In 20 years, someone in their 40s is going to be the same kid that was handed a phone so that they would shut up. I'm sure they said the same thing about my generation with cartoons and stuff like that, because like Saturday morning cartoons, that sort of thing, was huge with my generation. And we got the early morning cartoons during the week too, but in any case, you would sit and you would watch the fuzz on TV. And you're waiting for the channel to come on and the call signs and everything. I believe there was a national anthem, that sort of stuff. And you're watching Chilly Willy, you know, stuff like that. Internet it existed when I was in high school, but no one knew what it was. Because we're talking 92, 93, 94. You know, if someone had internet, they were rich. You know, that's back when, what was it, Good Morning America was like, there's this new www dot whatever thing, and they're looking at each other like they just looked at a picture of something that had 3 heads. You know, that's about the way it was. And by the time I graduated, there was like the computer in the library. That one would have the internet, and it was like this big thing. Because there were like 2 computers in the whole damn school anyway. Yeah, Tom and Jerry. But then again, we had Transformers, we had GoBots. Oh, GoBots is the lesser of the 2, but I actually liked them. And you had Jim, and Jim was awesome. You had Thundercats, and of course there's your G.I. Joes and all that kind of stuff, which is more what that was geared towards. Hold on. Hello, Vanessa Kitty. How are you doing? Which kind of pinpoints my generation. Actually, depending on what school I was at, there was one school I was at, because I go back and forth from Texas to Oklahoma. A little bigger school in Texas, they had some more computers. And they had one room with computers in it. That was it. Of course, typing was on a typewriter and all that kind of stuff. And this was back in the days, of course, it's floppy disk. I think it was Apple IIs. And we're talking 1991, maybe. And might have been 2, something like that. There was this game, I'm wanting to say it was called like BattleTech or something. Because we could come in there at lunch, and of course, the teacher in that class was a huge computer nerd. I've always been kind of a nerd anyways. And you choose between that game, and you made like this mech thing, and you built it up, and you went from place to place, and you fought with other mechs, and you got supplies. It was like the earliest version of one of those kind of games. It was on a floppy disk. And this was at the same time that you had the Oregon Trail. So you had that, and there was this one plane. It was a game with a plane where you're like a World War II airplane and you're dive bombing islands in the Pacific and stuff like that. So, what did we cook? Polska Bob, thank you for joining the chat. You're awesome. Bacon, eggs, and toast. And I've got coffee and a percolator back there. Chili Mac. Basic training that September. Oh. Yeah, shit on a shingle. slightly stale bread, all that good shit. Oh, you know the game that I'm talking about? Which one was that? Was that the playing game or the Met game? So I keep wanting to call it like Battletech or something. I don't know if that's because maybe a later game it came. And of course, I was poor, so I didn't have the Nintendo or any of that stuff. I'd have to walk to my friends' houses 2-3 miles down the road, and if one of them had a little bit of money, you know, it always seemed like the potheads had money. You know, if their parents were potheads, they would have video games and all that kind of stuff. And you know, you're playing Duck Hunt and Super Mario Brothers. I did know this one kid that was into computer gaming though, back in like '94, and he was the playing game. Cool. He was really into that stuff and all the controllers and all that. And I still remember, you know, Pong and everything and Atari in the '80s and playing Frogger. I had a friend that I'd walk to his house, and he was his parents' kid. But his parents were also foster parents. So there was like this revolving door of kids that would come in and out of their house. And he's the one that had the trampoline. They had a pool. It wasn't an in-ground pool. It wasn't even an above-ground pool. It was a cattle trough that had been filled up with water, and they'd let kids swim in it. He had the Atari and all that. There was one day they tried to round me up, and I'm like, I don't go with you. Because I guess that social worker was gathering up all the foster kids to go to a different foster home. And I happened to be there playing. Kind of. Yeah, it's like the potheads, and I've got a lot of them in my family. Dog, what are you chewing? What are you chewing? It's like they always had nothing. They had like this beat up Oldsmobile with pleather seats and holes in it and no AC and the windows down. You're sitting in the grocery store parking lot waiting for them to come out, buckled, burning you if you get back in it. You know, or a station wagon that was beat up. And station wagons were a thing. They were kind of cool on trips. Like this one family, they always had a bunch of station wagons. And their house was usually not that great, you know? But they would always have these nice little toys, you know, like the they were the ones that had Atari. They were the ones that had a Sega. They were the ones that had the Nintendo. When Sega came out, they blew Nintendo out of the water. That's back when Mike Tyson was popular and that whole thing with him. Sonic came out. What are you chewing? What was that, 90, 91? Somewhere around there. Oh, I had a 79 Pinto ass looking Mustang with a 2.3. Hold on, let me mute this. Just a delivery on my porch. Yeah, it was like I had just this piece of crap Mustang that I pushed home. And at the time, I had a friend who worked at the auto salvage, and that's how I fixed a lot of stuff up. And the reason I pushed this car home, Dennis, that guy's walking around outside, I guess. But it had a rod thrown through the side of the block. So what we did was we took a cast iron piece of angle iron, because that was a cast iron block. We brazed a piece of that angle iron to the block because it was down there with a pan met up to it. And we rebuilt the motor. We put it in there. And that's the car that I had when I moved back down to Texas. Now he's going to tear his duck up. He can't get to the UPS guy, so he's going to take it out on his toy duck. How cool. I shouldn't have sold my bikes. I had 73 and a 76 Kawasaki 750. Awesome, Krabby Turtle. I will catch you later. Thanks for joining in the conversation. That was a whole different time with vehicles and everything too. I don't know how many of y'all are close to my age or not, but it was like everyone could get a car. Didn't matter how poor you were. You could push home some piece of crap, 1970s pickup, whatever. One of them, like an old Ford that all the electronics was going bad on. All the wiring and stuff like that, because we're talking late 80s, early 90s, all that stuff they did in the 70s, the wiring was like crap. Once it got to about 15, 20 years old. But you could find these things for like $100, $200, what have you. Push it home, get it running, and you had a vehicle to get to work and back. And when you finally couldn't limp it along anymore, you would get another one, and you didn't have anything, but you could throw cars away like it was nothing. And literally just push something home that was sitting in someone's front yard. Have your friend drag it home with a rope. I don't know if you could do that now. Just with the price of everything and what they're wanting for like used vehicles, even that didn't run or anything. Ford Fiesta. Yeah, they weren't necessarily good. I had some good stuff. I had a 81 GMC that I had lowered 30 years ago and had it tubbed out. I shouldn't have pulled the motor out because somehow or another when I got it, it had a small block 400. And it was from 2 years before they started putting them in cars. Because I ran the numbers and everything on it. So the only thing they were putting that motor in the year that 400 came out was a cop car. So I had a cop car motor and an 81 GMC pickup. But I wanted a full house 454. So I built up a 454, had 2 4-barrel Howies and way more power than I needed at that age. I mean, you can't finance anything. You can't get a co-signer. You can't do anything like that, but you could somehow find the money to do stuff like that. Yeah, they want like $4,000 for it now. And I know inflation has caused things to go up significantly, but not that much. There were just so many cars you could get for like, $200, $300. It was within, your means to actually, you could get some piece of crap and fix it up. Oh, that was a huge difference. Polska Bob, thanks for mentioning that. Your car, the 85 Grand Marquis, was an all metal tank thing. The pickup I had before I had the one I have now was, well, I went through a period in my life where I kind of threw vehicles away because vehicles were just so cheap. Piece of crap cars were cheap. But I had gotten a 93 Chevy Cheyenne. And yeah, it had the 6-cylinder in it, had the extended bed, all that good stuff. But it was a good truck. And we had that truck for nearly 20 years. And it was old when I got it. But it was a good truck. And it finally just got on its last leg, and it wasn't worth me jacking with anymore. But I go from driving that, which was still kind of like a big, heavy boat on wheels. If y'all remember driving the old pickups. It was light in the back. You could skid real easy with the steer tires because all your weight's up there on the front. So a slick road, a slick curve in the south. It just rained real quick, or a red light. Easy to slide. And you go from that to the handling of what I have now, which is a 2018 F-150. And it's like going from, it was almost like going to a sports car. The handling difference, the everything difference between that 93 Chevy Cheyenne and a 2018 F-150. I mean, the way it holds in the curves, the way it does everything is so much better. Now, inflation had nothing to do with it. It's just greedy people. I agree. Yeah, unfortunately, we have to use money. But how many of us got our start in life that way, though? I think the new generation is a little bit screwed because of, I mean, you could have nothing. You could work for minimum wage. You could get an efficiency apartment. And at the time it was like a little over $200 a month for an efficiency apartment. And I was trying to figure out how I was going to afford $200 a month because I just thought that was so much, money per month, to be paying every month on a house. Little did I know anything. And you could have this beat up car. And you could exist, New York Outcast, how are you doing? Yeah. Those are actually really, really good trucks. I still like them. They lasted a long time. I think those trucks, that generation of both Chevy and Ford, from probably about 87, 88 through about 96, 97. When you look at how the vehicles looked and performed 20 years later, I think they were in much better condition and were much better vehicles than like the 70s models were in the 90s. Because the 70s models in the 90s was a whole bunch of Bondo and a choke that somebody had rigged up that didn't work right, and a push button start that half the time was sitting on the dash because you were using it to test other shit. And you needed to get out of the truck and hold it in your hand. And yeah, a transmission that was blowing oil half the time. And the lights, you hit a bump and all of a sudden your lights didn't work. You know, one light didn't work, or this one. Yeah. Some things it's good they don't make like they used to. Some things it's bad. I think the workmanship quality was actually better, but the technology in the later vehicles got better. Because if you look at through the 70s is a weird year for vehicles, or anything in the 70s. And it's like, I think 72 was probably the last good year for like your hot rods and stuff like that. Whether we're talking about a Camaro, a Mustang, a Corvette, anything like that. About 72 is like where they stopped being good for a long time. But you look at all the stuff they're putting on, the emissions, you have the oil crisis, the getting your gas by your plate number, and thankfully your father owns a construction company. You can take a different vehicle every day. Kind of stuff. But you know, even like the Trans Am. The Trans Am, it looked cool. The T-tops were awesome. Great movie. But the motor was so weak, they had to pull the Trans Am motor out of it and put a 454 in it so that it could do the stunts for the movie. 1970 Chevelle is awesome. I like going back through the history of stuff like that. And like everybody was like, oh yeah, Gran Torino, they want that. Well, what about a Torino? What about a Fairlane? You just follow that car back. Or there was a day when some old grandma would pull into a shop. I worked for a shop for a little while because I took diesel mechanics when I was in high school. And there was like this regular car shop behind my grandfather's when I moved in with him. And I worked there for a little while. And that's right before I started doing construction. This old grandma pulls in there with some 1960s car that came out stock with 2 4-barrels and a Hemi. Probably never been over 55 in its life. And it was still a good car. It was maintained. That's they don't make them like they used to cars. Once you get back to those cars, if they've been maintained and they're not completely rusted down, the simplicity to them, those are awesome. Once it got into like the 70s, things got screwed up. But you're thinking some kid's gonna buy that car with that big ass motor in it, and they're gonna blow it up. Yeah, the grandkids got over 55. Yeah, it was 55 nationwide speed limit when I started driving a truck. And that sucked. Driving across the whole country at 55. Then they had raised, because it was higher, then they dropped it down to 55, even for cars, and they raised it up, and they dropped it back down. I don't think we're ever going that route again. I mean, we've got 85-mile-an-hour speed limit in Texas on one road. But 55 really sucks. I miss a lot of the old cars. It's weird, though. I go back to a previous topic. There wasn't as much out there to help you, as much resources. You fell on your ass, you were homeless, what have you, as there are today. There's a lot more help. Because I was homeless at 11, and I had one of my sisters already, my younger sisters, and I didn't go to school. That was fifth grade year, and I didn't go to school that year. I tested the next year for grade placement, and my mom wouldn't let them put me that high because I tested, I believe, 11th grade. And she's like, just put me in sixth grade with the people that were my age. But, which whole different issues. I spent that year basically jamming up vending machines and arcades and stuff. And I'd come back through and I'd pull all the quarters out. And then you go to McDonald's or someplace like that and you get cheap food and me and my sister would be able to eat. You know, it's kind of what you had to do. But there was more help starting out. You could get more of these little jobs, you know, to start out, and a car or something, just some cheap piece of crap, and you could get this start in the world. That if you were willing to work, you know, I went from homeless to owning a home, having my own business, all that kind of stuff. But you've got to put the effort in, and it was there. And in many ways, I think the society today is more and more becoming built against that, where they're making it harder and harder to do. They don't want you to get up on your feet. Once you become dependent, I think they want you dependent. So it just seemed easier back then. I don't know if I'd be wanting to start off in the world today with nothing. You know, when you think about how much fun you could have with a little bit of nothing 20, 30 years ago, especially 30 years ago, you don't have but $5 or $10 in your pocket and you're going out on a Saturday night and you could have a lot of fun. You leave that cat alone. Yeah, they do handicap their kids a lot. They get too much. The boomers had that problem. That was a big discussion. Some of y'all remember shows like 30 something and all that kind of stuff. And I remember when I was little, the World War II generation that created the boomers, they talked about the boomers in many ways the same way we talk about millennials and people like that. How they were given everything and how lazy they were and everything else. Will you leave that cat alone? That cat is going to hurt you. I don't care how big you are. Lay down. She is going to box your ears. Lay down. Well, you got to have a little struggle to know how to work for things, that sort of stuff. Bearded guy. A Chevy 350 small block will fit in a 70s Ford Fiesta. There used to be a guy that advertised being able to do that. Any motor in any car, and he would adapt it. And that was... No, hold on. You leave her alone. Yeah, she is the one. She will hurt you. That cat doesn't put up with any shit. No, down. Where were we at? And of course, the boomer generation gave birth to my generation, us feral Gen Xers, running through the woods, shooting each other with BB guns, using Roman candles for rockets. 20 miles, well, probably wasn't 20 miles. It's a great exaggeration, like uphill both ways. But, you know, you're miles away from your house, getting into all kinds of things because you're expected to go outside and play. I can still hear my stepfather, you know, you want a drink? He's like, by God, there's a water hose outside. You got locked out of the house. So we're like, I don't know, we came up, you had a job mowing someone's lawn, hauling hay. Everybody saw you around town or what have you, depending on where you live. That was normal. To see kids just by themselves out playing miles from home, that was a normal thing. They would probably call the cops on you for today. Oh, yeah. Yeah, no pellets. Don't use pellets, use BBs. One pump. Of course, we were all dressed up like Vietnam. So at the time, that was the last big war. So all your surplus stuff, everything coming out was all like Vietnam era camo. You had your aviator glasses, like some state trooper, and you had your bandana on your head. You know, if you're lucky, you might have your dad's army jacket or something. And all the movies were Vietnam, and they had TV shows like, what was that, around 1989, 90? They had Tour of Duty, China Beach, stuff like that. It was all like Vietnam centered. Kind of like stuff would be more Afghanistan or Iraq centered, that sort of stuff today. No. It's a different time. Anyways, I'm going to have to get between this cat and this dog. Janice, come here. Come here. Come here. I'm telling you, she's going to hurt you. Let me see. Oh, yeah, definitely. We would ride forever. Go to a music store and sit on the floor, pulling out, you know, boxes from underneath with records and all kinds of crap in it. It's a different time. You go to an arcade that was 7 miles away and you just hop on your bike and go. And I didn't have a bike, so I had to run along with my friends for a while. And then in one of the trash piles, because you go places where people would dump their trash, and that's where we would look for like old broke BB guns and bikes and stuff like that. When we got enough parts, we finally put a bike together for me out of all these scrap parts that everyone threw away. And I finally had a bike to ride with my friends. But you would ride 10 miles easy to go to an arcade or something like that. Yeah, the kitty attacks the dog. She's mean. She's a mean girl. And she will go toe to toe. She does not care how big he is or anything else. She's like, you're going to catch these claws, dude. Yeah. See, that bearded guy, you know what I'm talking about. Once you get that bike. And what's weird is this generation of kids today, they're not even interested in getting a car. You know? Or driving, and that was a big thing, was, oh my God, you got your driver's license. You know, it was like a rite of passage, and kids today are just, I guess because they have everything at home, They want to hang out with their friends. They go hop online and they hang out with their friends. We had to go to a Walmart parking lot 15 miles away that was closed at night because it wasn't a super Walmart yet or anything like that. It was just a regular old Walmart. Yeah, they would call CPS, or today, on most of the stuff that we did back then. We're throwing firecrackers at each other. We're getting in fights in the middle of the street, that sort of thing. As far as a cat goes, I've got a big Mastiff over here. Y'all seen him, Dennis. He's Great Dane and Boxer mix. And there's this little cat whose father looked like a little panther. She's black and white. That's Chloe. You've seen her too. And she does not take crap off of anyone or anything. She will go toe to toe with him. He's got plenty of scratches on his nose. You want some more scratches? Is all the gray fur hiding it? Yeah. His face is going gray. Yeah, that cat doesn't care. Sometimes she'll play with him a little bit. Most of the time, no. And then he gets mad because she doesn't want to play with him. And then the barking and everything starts. And then we end up looking like Tom and Jerry, where you have the lady with the broom chasing the dog that's chasing the cat that's chasing the rat, going around and around in circles, except I don't think we have any rats. So it's just a dog and two cats, and I'm chasing them. Oh, yeah. Your parents would drop you off someplace like that if they had things to do and would just leave you. Yeah, kids are too soft today. Wait. And they want to call the cops if your kid has a fight at school. That's like a natural part of growing up. And that's one thing that they should definitely let boys do. It's like watching my sons grow up. There's like a pecking order. There's things they're figuring out themselves in life. You have to learn to stand up to bullies in either regard. You have to learn to stand up for yourselves. And guys especially, they have to have that aggressive outlet to do something. I mean, whether it's sports, whether it's fighting, most people of my generation, male or female, know if you say what are you playing with that for? If you said the right thing to somebody's face, you were going to get punched in the face. And that was just expected. That wasn't the cops' call. That wasn't anything else. That was a generation that knew that your mouth could get your ass kicked. And they don't know that now. They think they can talk like online in person. And they're not very good at talking in person either. Yeah, no accountability. You were instantly accountable. You said some shit about somebody, they would come to your face. No problems with that. Parents would sit on the front porch and watch you fight, to a point, as long as no one was getting really hurt. Yeah, it's normal. You get upset, all that stuff. You learn how to deal with that. You learn how to deal with people. You learn your best way of dealing with them. You may not be good at fighting, but you may be good at negotiating, and you're going to learn that, and that's going to be a skill for later in life. All I know is getting knocked off a trailer loaded with hay, landing on fresh cut hay, hurts. I get mad when that happens. Me and my cousins fought big time. We're not talking slapping, pulling hair, any of that crap. We're talking, we fought. Yeah. Some states still have the mutual combat law, which I think if two people want to fight, let them fight. We're human. Look at all our technology. Where'd it come from? Nearly every piece of technology that we have, nearly everything that we have, what was it designed to do? Either kill someone or aid in killing them. I mean, this internet stuff was military at first. Come on. Now it's being used to brainwash us. So how different is it? Guns were designed to kill people. They weren't designed for hunting. They weren't really even used for hunting until roughly about the last 100 years. They didn't even become viable for hunting anything other than like waterfowl or something like that until rifling. Rifling was like right before the Civil War. So when the country was founded, what were they hunting with? They were trapping. They were hunting with a bow. You look at all these hunting expeditions from early 1900s, and you got people with a bow and arrow dragging back like a bear or something, because they're still using that. You know, if you shot it, it's because you trapped it and you creeped up to something you trapped and then you shot it. Kind of goes back to Iraq. We figured out we could hit something with our fist and hurt it. We figured out we could pick up a rock and hit somebody with it and hurt it. We figured out we could throw the rock. And the human species, especially young boys, but young girls too, what is one of the first things that we do instinctively? We pick something up and we throw it. As a toddler, we learn how to do that. It's genetically wired into us. We're the only species that does that. So how do we get this rock to go further? We develop slingshots. We got a pointy stick. We can poke something with it. Great, we can hit something with it. How do we get this stick to go further? Because I don't want to have to get so close to kill something. I want to kill it over there. We start throwing spears, making, what is that, adalats, so we can throw the spear further. We get bow and arrows, which is a stick with a rock on the end of it. Our two favorite things, a stick and a rock. And we sharpen the rock. Oh, great. So we're going to throw this rock with a stick, and it's going to be sharp, and we're going to stick it in that thing over there. Then we get to guns, gunpowder. People are like, oh, the Chinese only use that for fireworks. No. They make crude guns out of bamboo, which you're basically putting a rock. Even if you're putting metal in it, metal is a rock. We melt. And you're firing it. So we're going to make an explosion here, and it's going to make this little rock go over there, and it's going to hit you. They're making basically crude landmines, claymore mines with a fuse, grenades, stuff like that out of it. We're figuring out ways to kill people. Nearly everything we have was figuring out ways to kill something. You know, it's inherent in our nature that violence is there. Not that it shouldn't be controlled. It should definitely be controlled. But in order to control that inherent part of our nature, you're going to have to explore that part of it. And I think that's what children are doing at an age when you should be doing it. No different than when you see puppies and something in the backyard and they're fighting each other and they're biting each other and throwing everyone around. They're learning that. We're not that different from them. So you should let the kids fight. You should let them work it out. And there's part of me that thinks that's one of the reasons we're getting these psychos like these mass shooters and stuff like that. Is not only are we telling, especially when it comes to boys, especially young boys, we're telling them that you can't fight. We're telling them that you can't do what's in your nature. We're putting them through a school process that is more designed now for girls than it is for guys. We're expecting them to conform to all this, and when it doesn't go well, we start giving them all this psychiatric medication messing with their heads. And I think that's part of what's leading to this problem with mass shooters and stuff like that. And that's a long rant that hopefully people could follow. We're apes. They have that debate of we didn't come from apes. We are apes. Whether you want to look up that religiously or scientifically or what have you, we're just the highest in that thing. I don't know why chimpanzees exist. Maybe God figured if you screwed up enough with us, they're next in line. Who knows? We're not that far off from them. A few IQ points, but the same basic, the same jealousy, the same everything else that you see. I mean, chimps have war. They're one of the other species that have war with other tribes, literal war against each other, which I think Goodall and a few have documented. And that basic rage and jealousy and stuff like that they have, we have the same thing. I mean, sad to say, but some of the things they like to throw at people is not one of the things that separate us from them. That bearded guy, I think that was a universal experience. I got electrocuted by a cord that I was told not to touch, that I was told not to plug in, because it had a part on it that was stripped, and I plugged it in. I didn't do that again. Stimulus response. You do this, this hurts. You don't do that again. I mean, there's stuff with like PTSD and all that. I have issues with PTSD, documented PTSD, and TBI, PTSD, OCD, all that crap, acronyms that mental psychiatrist freaks like to come up with. But I think part of that is also in human nature, that stimulus response thing where, it's the same as you touch the pan, it's hot, you burn it. Everybody did that as a child. You burnt your hand on the stove. What did you not do again? Hopefully, touch the stove. But we all did it 2 or 3 more times before we figured out, don't touch the stove because you're going to get your hand burnt just like you did the last 3 times. And then you didn't touch the stove again. It's probably more accurate to how the human brain works. And I think some things, they just get burned in there harder than others. But maybe you're supposed to have a certain level of like PTSD for certain things. And it's a protective thing. It's like, hey, this is going to hurt. Do not do this. That hurt me really bad last time. So your brain is saying that you really cannot do that. You cannot be in that situation because that was really, really bad. And so it records it in there permanently. Yeah, we all love to learn the hard way. Yeah. Everybody likes to say the good, oh, you touched the stove, it was hot, so you never touched it again. Not really. You touched the stove, it was hot, you burned, you accidentally touched it again. It generally took you about, 3, 4 times to figure out, do not put your hand near the stove. That's probably a more accurate way of describing how we learn. Then some of us never learn. My mouth will probably get me killed one day. For some reason, what's in my head tends to come out my mouth. And that's not always a good thing. That kind of makes sense. I honestly think it's something that's hardwired in there more as a protective thing. You think most all of our ancestors, number one, they never saw anyone of another race, no matter what race they were. If they were Chinese, they never saw anything but Chinese people. If they were African, they never saw anything but people that looked like them. So they had war against tribes that were around them that looked just like them, but they had to have something different. But it's not that long ago that we're still hunting for our meat. We're growing crops. But, it's not like, today, you had your little basic, you still did a lot of gathering, you still did a lot of hunting, and you were still a whole lot closer to nature, which we still are very close to it. We just mentally separate ourselves from it, and every once in a while get hit really hard to remind ourselves that we are not separate from the rest of the world with earthquakes and hurricanes and all that kind of stuff. But that wasn't that long ago. Or even look at this country, the settlers going out west and what have you, out into an open wilderness. And you had that experience with a bear, just for an example, that you barely lived through that experience with a bear. You might have its fur coat hanging on your wall at home, but that's going to ingrain itself in your head. You're going to see that bear that nearly killed you. 20 years later, something's going to remind you, and it's going to click, and that reel is going to play. I think it kind of relates something back to there. You went through something that was really hard, really bad, and it just imprinted itself in your mind. And it comes from, something that was supposed to protect us. And that now we don't have the ways of dealing with it that probably we did then. We don't have as physical a life. We don't have a lot of things that we had then. A cat has to scratch to get rid of frustration and stress, or they're going to bite you. A dog has to chew to do the same thing. We have to have all this physical activity, or it's not good for our health mentally. Yeah, pattern recognition. It kind of goes back to that in a way. That thing that hurt you so bad. Anyways, I have too much time to think about things when you're stuck in a truck. I usually live in a padded cell on wheels. There's a reason the walls are padded in an 18-wheeler. And you have nothing but time to think about every dark little recess in your mind. Any demon that you have crawling around in those dark recesses, if you don't want to not only talk to them, play with them, but make friends with them, truck driving is not the occupation for you. Because you're going to wonder what that noise was in the background when your wife hung up the phone. And that's going to mess with you. Yeah, kind of like an imprint sort of thing. But anyways, we've been going for 2 hours, and that was brunch. And I got to wash dishes and start getting stuff ready for going on the road tomorrow. I cooked my food last night. I might go on my other channel a little bit later, maybe play guitar a little bit. I don't know. We will see. They all got restrung. Oh, you know them padded cabs all too well. You know exactly what I'm talking about. But I will catch y'all later. I'm going to go ahead and end the chat. I don't see or hear the dog. I'm going to make sure that the cat didn't kill the dog. She's vicious. She is a cold-hearted, beautiful killer. And I love her. But anyways, I'll catch y'all later. Thank you so much. Other channels? Oh, yeah. Maybe I'll post that in there if you want to check it out. Let me go back through here. Switch accounts before I go. Chasing Ghost is my other account. And for my bike content, and there's a little guitar starting to get in there. but I haven't really been playing in a while. But it's mostly my bike channel is Chasing Ghost. Chasing Ghost 4499, which you can find on Instagram, which has a lot of reels and stuff. And you can also find on YouTube. So let me switch back to Tara Smith's Kitchen. And I probably go into more rants. I can't do any more live chats on my bike until the 8th because I forgot to turn my hotspot off and my GoPro decided to download everything and used all my data. But I do live chats from my motorcycle and stuff, and I probably get more rants and stuff in there. But I just posted a link. That is a link to my other YouTube channel if you want to check that out. And if you want to find me on Instagram, it's the same. It's Chasing Ghost 4499, which is just a random number that YouTube gave me because apparently there are a lot of chasing ghosts that are completely different kind of channels. If you want to know why it's called Chasing Ghost, go to the About section and you can read the About section, and that is an explanation of why. It's nothing paranormal. Thank you, that bearded guy. Awesome. If it dries up a little more outside, I might go for a ride. I don't know. I'm kind of like Keanu Reeves on that. Not riding a motorcycle is not good for my health. It's like blowing wind through that big hole that life has left in your chest from stomping you down for the last 3 decades. And it's awesome. But I will catch y'all later. I'm going to have to find a restroom anyways.